Hi, this is Ann Peabody, and I'm going to be talking about subjects inside my book, A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service, illustrated by Eric C. Brady. What I want to talk about is the fact that voicing your opinion to someone, and what I mean by that is when I worked at MAO, which was Montgomery AIDS Outreach, a nonprofit organization, uh, but it was an AIDS clinic. But anyway, I was a lab director there, and two of the workers there that worked with me and underneath me, as far as drawing blood from patients and so forth. But they mostly worked with me. Uh, had They were raised by single mothers, and they knew I was adopted. And one day, the two of them came up to me and proceeded to tell me how disgusting, how horrible, and whatever bad thing they could think about my birth mother was for giving me up for adoption rather than raising me on her own. I told them, I said, first of all, it was a different time. It was in the 1950s. I said, and that wasn't acceptable up there. And women were, and children were, if they got pregnant and they weren't married, were forced to go to mother homes. They were forced to give up their children for adoption. They did not want to accept that. They said she should have fought for me and she should have taken care of me. And I don't know if it's a Southern thing, because I now live in Alabama. I was born in Massachusetts. But the thing is, telling someone who's adopted, first of all, belittling their birth mother. First of all, you don't know her. I didn't even know her. So I can't make a judgment on somebody I don't know. Did she make poor decisions? Maybe. Maybe not. But the thing is, how dare you tell me that my birth mother shouldn't have given me up and that she should have, showed stamina and did it on her own, because that's the way it's done. I wouldn't dare to presume to tell you that your birth mother should have given you up for adoption or aborted you because, a mother who's single and never married, it ruins her reputation, and how dare she raise you on her own? I would never dare to say that. It's not my place. And raising up a child, that's the whole thing about when you're pregnant. You have choices. Back then, you had limited choices. You could do an abortion in a backyard alley where you could die. You could give a child up, or you could raise it on your own. And different time periods, it was unacceptable for women, especially white women, to raise, especially if they weren't poor, if they were middle income or higher up. It was unacceptable for them to raise a child on their own. And if they attempted to do so, they were considered crazy and they would be put in an institution. So to make judgments on people you don't even know, no, that's wrong. And no one has a right to do that. And you should never belittle anyone's family or themselves because of the circumstances, because you don't know the circumstances. My birth mother was forced basically to give my brother up and myself up. She tried to bond with my brother while he was in foster home. She had hoped to bring him back home, but she couldn't manage it. She had emotional problems. I'm not saying she was crazy. I have no idea. I know she was institutionalized, but back then that didn't mean anything. You could say, well, if someone was crazy, and especially if it was a woman, she was automatically locked up because she's insane. She's emotional. She needs to be straightened out and fly straight. She's got to think like the rest of us. And she was under pressure. Her mother had died. She took care of her mother until she died from cancer. Then she was had an aunt who knew nothing about them and barely visited her mother while she was sick, dying, who was going to take care of them. The father had remarried and relocated to Pensacola, Florida. And the aunt didn't want her associating with men. She graduated LPN school, and her aunt, you know, kept telling different things. One man, you should keep the kid, and I'm talking about my birth brother, not me. You should keep him, you should give him up. And they kept moving. I don't know if it's because my mother kept moving or because the aunt kept moving, because it was the aunt that was taking care of her and her brother. Her aunt was mad at my uncle because he got married, because she thought my uncle should basically just take care of her and my mother and not have a life of his own, which is ridiculous. And I don't know if the aunt ever worked or not. I know my mother tried. There were times she was in the hospital, times she was institutionalized. I do know she had tuberculosis at one time. But basically, I know very little about my mother, her personality, the personality of my aunt. I know my uncle told me he was from a dysfunctional family, and my mother was very unhappy. I know she never married. And I don't know if that's because of the dynamics of her family or she just never felt the desire to. But she was thought of as crazy, and they were mad at her because, and they thought she was crazy because she wasn't upset about the fact that she had two children out of wedlock. And I know she did try to come and get me back when I was 3. It's in my social work chart. But other than that, I know nothing. I know they said the lawyers told her they wouldn't take it because she was crazy. And so, but if you don't know the circumstances of someone either being raised by their birth mother or birth father or a relative or adopted, then don't say anything because it's none of your business. You know nothing. You shouldn't have an opinion on it. And you could end up hurting people, their feelings, and make them feel belittled and disrespected. And that is not a good thing. And that's basically all I wanted to say. I hope everybody has a great week. Enjoy next weekend the college football if you're into that. And if you're not, enjoy football on Sunday if you're into that. But have a great weekend, have a great week, and peace out.